So the topic that I've been given to speak to you all about is the Barzakh. And what I'm about to tell you in 40 minutes is a summary of a 12-hour lecture series that I did that was still incomplete on the Barzakh. And that's how sort of there's so many different aspects of the Barzakh that need to be discussed. But I will try my hardest to cover all of that as I can. And so without doing too much of an introduction, I'll just go straight into the lecture series and the lecture, and then anything that you have to ask afterwards, we can maybe cover it in the question and answers. The point of Barzakh, or the start of the Barzakh, happens when an individual sees Malik al-Maut for the first time as when his time is up and his soul is ready to leave his body. His one foot enters that realm. And death itself, because before you can talk about the Barzakh, you need to understand this idea of death. The Holy Prophet is walking with one of his companions, and they start passing by a market stall. And they see someone frying sweets in boiling syrup, throwing the sweets into boiling syrup. And the Holy Prophet turns to that individual and says to him that how painful would it be was someone to be thrown within this boiling syrup? The companion replies, very painful, Ya Rasulullah. And the Holy Prophet replies that death is 1,000 times more painful than this. That it's 1,000 times more painful than being thrown into this boiling vat of syrup. And in order to understand this transition into that world, I want to take a narration and a story that comes to us from Salman Farsi, Salman Muhammadi. This is towards the end of the life of Salman, when Salman is in Madain. Amir al-Mu'mineen had already said to Salman that, Salman, when you die, I will be there by your side. And know that the time of your death you will know the time of your death, for the people of the graves shall speak to you. Yeah? So I'm going to summarize this story as quick as possible. Itself, it's quite a long story, and then try and speak about some of the elements of the Barzakh that are spoken about in some of the books. So Salman falls ill. Asbaq ibn Nubata says that I went to visit Salman in Madain. I heard that Salman was ill. Says when I came inside the house, Salman looked at me and said, Asbaq, I think my time is near, but I heard Amir al-Mu'mineen say to me that, Salman, your time will only come when the people of the grave speak to you. So he says, Asbaq, prepare for me a bed of sorts that you can hold from either side, and have me carried to the graveyard of Madain. And so they place Salman upon this bed, and they carry him to the graveyard of Madain. There Salman addresses the people of the grave. First he calls out, says, Salam be upon you, O people of the grave. And there's no reply. And again Salman calls out, and again there's no reply. The third time Salman calls out, he says, it is me, Salman, the slave, the companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen. I'm addressing you. Will you not reply to me? And the reply comes, Wa alaykum salam. And Salman now begins to address this person who's speaking to him from the Barzakh. Says to him, tell me about death. Says, tell me about this journey that happened. Says, Salman, ask me about anything else, but do not ask me about death. Says Salman, it was so painful when my death came. Suffice it to say that 99 years have passed since I died. But the point from where Malakul Maut separated my soul from my body, the final point was my throat. And up until this time, 99 years later, I can still feel the pain of that soul being ripped from my body. Salman says, tell me, what is it that happened? So he says, Salman, I wasn't a bad person. I was a good person. Hence why I've been allowed to speak to you. He says, when the time of my death came close and my family members were all around me, I was ill. He says, in the corner of the room, I saw Malikul Maut, the angel of death. His appearance, and various narrations speak about the appearance of Malikul Maut. There's two appearances that he comes in. One is for the disbelievers, the sinners. One is for those that are believers. For the disbelievers, he comes in dressed in black with smoke billowing from him, hair standing on end. That fearsome face that strikes fear even into the heart of someone like Nabi Ibrahim. Because Nabi Ibrahim, questionable, who he used to chill with, but one of the people was Malikul Maut himself. And so he's sitting with Malikul Maut one day and he says to him, show me how it is that you come to take the soul of the disbeliever. He says, Ibrahim, you may be a prophet of God, but you won't be able to bear it. He says, no, show me. He says, Ibrahim, you may be a messenger of God, but you won't be able to bear it. He says, no, show me. I want to see it. He says, okay, Ibrahim, turn around. And so Nabi Ibrahim turns around and he says, now look back at me. And when he turns around, what he sees in front of him, Nabi Ibrahim faints out of fear. This state that Malakul Maut comes in, to take the soul of the disbeliever. Says Salman, I saw him standing in front of me, he began pointing at me. The first thing that happened is he pointed at my limbs. And my limbs ceased to work. Now my family members are coming and they are hugging me and I want to hug them, but my hands, my feet, nothing works. And then he pointed towards my tongue. And now I couldn't say anything. I wanted to tell them that I loved them. I wanted to tell them I was sorry. I wanted to make up for all the things that I may have done to hurt them. But now my tongue isn't working. Says, then he pointed to my ears. And now I could not hear anything. I could see my loved ones coming towards me, crying, holding on to me, but now I can't move, I can't speak, I can't hear what they're saying. Says, and then finally, he points towards my eyes, and darkness fell in front of my eyes. I see nothing. Says, at that moment he brandished towards me a spear of fire and yanked my body away from my soul. And I instantly found myself separated. And now in this darkness, I looked to my left and looked to my right and found two angels standing by. I turned to the first and said, who are you? He says, I was the angel that sat on your right shoulder. And he says, I turned to the other and said, you? And he said, I sat on your left. I wrote all the bad that you did. And this one told me he wrote everything good. Says, sit down, analyze your book, read what we have written. He says, Salman, I began to read my book of good deeds and I realized that not a single aspect of my life was removed from this. Every single movement of my eye, every thought, everything that I had done. And then I began to read my book of evil deeds. And he says, I wept as I read those deeds. Says, as I had finished reading them, another angel descended and wrapped me in a cloth and took me towards the heavens. And there I reached the arsh, I was questioned and then brought back down. For the believer, they're able to ascend right to the peak. But for the sinner, as they reach the first points of the heavens, the doors are closed and the angels smack them back down towards the earth. Says that as I went and I returned by this time, I saw my family members gathered around me crying, and I was screaming out to them that don't cry, I can hear you, I'm here. And as they wailed, as they cried, says Malakul Maut, who looked at each and every one of them, and he says, why is it that you cry in such a way? Have I done some sort of dhulm upon this individual? I'm just fulfilling my job. I'm fulfilling the order of God. And then he turned to each and every one of them and said, know this. These are other narrations that say that those that wail incessantly over the death of one that has left this world, of their loved one, Malakul Maut points to each of them. He says that I have not done anything wrong. I have only fulfilled the order of God. Says, know that I will come for your brothers and your sisters and your fathers and your mothers. Each and every one of you. I will come for your souls. Says, I come back to heaven. I come back to earth. And I saw my body lying upon the table of ghusl. And they're washing my body. Says Salman, I begged those that washed my body. I said to them, please do it gently. This is my friend that has been with me for 70, 80 years. It was good to me in the world. Be gentle with it. Says Salman, no matter how much I cried, how much I wailed, no one listened, no one heard me. See, as the disbeliever, as the sinner lies on that table, that water that is tepid, that is warm, that is being washed, that is being used to wash this body, the adhab begins from there. That in that realm, in this realm it is just normal water. In that realm, that water is boiling. And the soul is feeling every single drop of that boiling water, but increased 1,000 times, 10,000 times. It's a place of extrasensory perception. You see more. You hear more. You feel more. It says, then Salman, they began to wrap my body in the shroud, in the kafan. For the disbeliever, this kafan becomes a kafan of fire. And the punishment continues. Says they lifted my body, they placed it within a coffin, and they began to carry it towards the graveyard. Says Salman, I chased behind them and I begged them, don't take me away. Don't leave me here. Says, can you not see me? Says, I went after them, I shouted to them, I told them not to take me, but no one would heed my call. Other narrations say the body calls out, the soul calls out to those that carried the dead body. Says that I complained to you of children who I ran my life after. But yet, they are of no avail to me. I complained to you of that wealth that I chased, but yet today I have none of it with me. It comes alongside you, the soul of that person. Comes towards, says Salman, they brought me to the grave, they placed me in the grave. And they began to cover me and bury me. I'm missing out on a lot of bits because I want to get to the end of this story. Says Salman, they placed me in the grave. They began covering me and I started saying to them, please don't leave me, don't leave me. I stood and I watched my body be buried in the earth. Says when they had finished covering my grave with earth, I found my soul being thrown back inside my body. I woke up and I was within my grave. And all I could hear from above the grave was, there's nothing we can do for him now. Let us go. Let's go and recite Quran for him. He says that in that state, I was in that grave alone. There was no one there. I started calling out, don't leave me, let me go. Then he says, I had no other hope. I called out to God. I said, God, please, let me go. I swear, if you let me live again and go back upon the earth, I won't commit the sins that I committed. I won't do the haram that I did. Give me one more chance. Let me go back. Says, at that point, I heard a voice from behind me saying, no, surely they lie. It's the ayah of the Quran. It says, no, surely they lie about what they say. For now there is a barzakh between them. إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ, until the day that they shall be raised again. Says, I turned around in my grave to see who is it that is speaking to me. And I saw an angel standing. I said to him, who are you? He said, my name is Rumman. And I'm here to prepare you for the coming of Munkar and Nakir. Says, what is it that you want from me? Says, I want you to write your whole life's deeds with your own hands. Every good, every bad deed that you did, I want you to write it with your own hands. Says, I turned to him, I said, Rumman, I have no paper, how am I going to write? He says, he tore a part of my coffin and he handed it to me in my hand. He said, this is your paper, write. He says to him that, Rumman, I don't have a pen. Says, your finger shall be your pen, write. Says, but there's no ink. How is it that I'm supposed to write? He says, your saliva. Says, your saliva is your ink. Write your whole life's deeds. He says, Salman, I turned to this angel. I said to him, Rumman, how is it that I'm supposed to remember my whole life's deeds? I lived for 80-something years. Says, you've forgotten, but Allah never forgets. I will dictate to you, you write. Says, he made me write my every single deed that I'd ever committed. Every good deed, every movement of my eye, every movement of my hand. Imagine, everything written down. And then he said, turn over now, begin to write your bad deeds. Says, Salman, as I wrote my evil deeds, I wept. I said to him, I can't do it anymore. Don't make me write my evil deeds. Don't make me write what I did bad within the world. He turned to me and he pulled out a spear, a hot poker. He says, will you write or shall I beat you with this? Says, he brandished it towards me. Out of fear, I said to him, Rumman, I will write. Says, I wrote my whole life's deeds. Every evil action that I had ever done, every voice that I had raised in front of my parents, every disrespectful look that I had ever given anyone. Says, I wrote it all down. Says, I looked at this book that I had written. I said, what is this book? That nothing is hidden from it. All the small and the large deeds are there. Says, Rumman turned towards me. He said, make sure you sign it. Says, how shall I sign it? Says, mark it with your thumb. That this is your life and you attest that you did these deeds in your life. Says, I marked it with my thumb. And he tied around it a rope. A single piece of parchment, because that realm is not dependent upon the rules of this realm. That realm has different rules. Says he tied rope around it, this single piece of parchment that contained my whole life's deeds. He placed it around my neck. Says Salman, the weight of it was such that I thought that my neck was going to break. I turned to him, I said, Rahman, what have I ever done to you? Why is it that you must be so harsh with me? Why is it that you place this huge weight around my neck? He says, did you not read the Quran while you were alive? That every human being shall be raised from their grave with their deeds hanging around their neck. Says he turns to me and says, now wait. For Munkar and Nakir, for they will take your questioning. Says Rahman leaves and enter in Munkar and Nakir. And you hear that Munkar and Nakir will ask those questions. And we're going to look very briefly. I'm not going to go into the depth of what they're going to ask, but just the question. It says, Rahman left, and 2 other angels entered. Says that I looked towards them and I saw them. They were tall, they had lightning in their eyes, their appearance was scary, their voices were like thunder. Their voices were like thunder. As soon as they entered into the grave, one of them let out a scream and the eardrums burst within my ears. Says, just looking at them, I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what to say. Both of them held maces of fire in their hands. They began to ask me the questions. I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what to say, Salman. Out of fear, I didn't know what to say. Says they asked me again and again, and I could not answer. The fear had overcome my body. Says eventually I turned my mind towards Allah. I said, Allah, help me through this. Says, and my tongue became untied. And I began to answer their questions. And with every correct answer, the appearance of Munkar and Nakir became less and less scary. Until I had answered all of the questions. At this point, they said, you have passed. And they pushed the side of my grave. And I saw a cool wind. I felt a cool wind enter my grave. And saw that as far as I could see, there were gardens that were in front of me. What are those questions Munkar and Nakir are going to ask? According to narrations, the 6th Imam says there's 6 and 3 questions. So the companion says 9 questions. He says no. There are 6. If the person passes the first 6, they will then be asked the following 3 questions. And then other narrations also speak about 1 additional question. 10 in total. If a person passes each subsequent. The first one, who is your Lord? Don't have time to go into depth of what the intricacies of this are. Because in that realm you can't lie. Here I can make up whatever story I want, and I can spin whatever yarn I want, and I can sweet talk my way out of any situation. But over there, there's no sweet talking. There's no lying. There's no half-truths. That is the realm of only absolute truth. Some will be so afraid when Munkar and Nakir ask them that who is your Lord, out of absolute fear, they'll turn to them and say, you two are our Lords. Because in this world, they never put Allah as a priority. They always put God secondary in their life. The time for salah came, and they said, no, let me finish this round of Fortnite. I'm in a battle royale. I can't get off it now. Time for salah came. Oh, I can't pause it. I'm on an online FIFA game. I'm going to lose my points. They never gave God priority in their lives. Now when Munkar and Nakir ask them that who is your Lord, they can't answer. The second question, who is your prophet? How are they going to answer if they know nothing about the Holy Prophet? They didn't embody the life of the Holy Prophet, the actions of the Holy Prophet. What is your religion? We all know it's Islam. But I have to ask myself, does my life really reflect Islam? Yeah, it's great. I can reflect Islam perfectly when I'm in the masjid. But can I reflect it outside? When I'm alone, when my friends aren't there, when no one can see me, do I really believe? Ask, what is your book? It's in the Quran. But that's only if I open that book regularly and I had a connection with it. The only book that I open is Facebook. And I've got no truth. What is your book? Can I say the Quran? Or is it that I learnt it till I was at the age of 8 and I got really happy when my parents threw me a party because I had finished the Quran, but then since that day I've never picked it up? In fact, when it comes to Shahr Ramadan and I have to read it, I start off like for the first 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, week, and then I start getting into the flow of things again. And I think, oh, I know how to recite the Quran. Or has it been so long that I've never read it and I've forgotten how to read it? There will come a time where a person will be asked, what is your book? How will you answer? How will I answer? So what is your qibla? Where was the place towards which you prayed? What was it that was priority in your life? When you were praying, what is it that you were focused on? Were you all over the place thinking about football or something else? Or was I focused on God, focused towards the direction I was praying? In all my life, what is my priority? I have to ask myself. I saw the most ridiculous thing today. I'm going to share it with you because you all look absolutely mortified. Don't worry, it gets scarier. But you look absolutely mortified. I saw the most stupidest thing today. Shared it with a few friends. Someone went all the way to Karbala, went on ziyarah, and you know, he stands in Bain al-Haramain and he unfurls a flag, we are all Liverpool. Do you see how wrong our priorities are? And he comes out and he holds up a flag. It's red. It's nothing to do with the Imams. I've had the opportunity to go on ziyarah, and the only thing I want to tell the world is I'm praying for Liverpool. It's things like this that we will not be able to answer for in that world. Here I can spin it and say, oh yeah, it's because I love them, whatever. Over there, there's no answer. What is your qibla? What is the focus of your attention? Then the last question will be, and who are your imams? And what will I say? That's one Imam Ali. Everybody knows Imam Ali. Yeah. Imam Hussain. Well, no, Imam Hussain. Everybody knows Imam Hussain. Then after that it gets a bit fuzzy. Yeah? Imam Sajjad because he's, you know, Imam Hussain. Imam al-Baqir, Imam Sadiq, yeah, because we're all like Ja'faris and so. Imam al-Kadhim, to some extent. Imam al-Rada, yeah, the one in Iran. Gives good food. This is, you know, we go to ziyarah and the first thing we're like, right, give my passport in, go for the dastakhan imam. Yeah? I haven't even gone for the ziyarah. It's my imam. What is my priority at that point? Imam al-Jawad, that one's a bit iffy. Imam al-Hadi, still don't really know much about that one. Imam al-Askari, and then the Imam al-Aqam. Yeah, we've heard about it. Do you see how we give priority to certain ones? How are we going to answer that? And then even the ones I give priority over all others, what do I really know about their life? How will I answer? So if a person answers these successfully, the next three questions that Munkar and Nakir will ask, that we gave you blessings in this world, we gave you ni'mah in this world. How did you use them? Gave you the blessing of wealth. We gave you the blessing of good looks. We gave you the blessing of good health. We gave you the blessing of good parents. We gave you the blessing of a house. We gave you the blessing of a car. We gave you blessing of, I don't know, Yeezys. What did you do with them? Managed to buy them, but what did you use them for? So you could show off on social media that I got a pair of Yeezys. And I want to follow. I don't know what my imams want from me, but I certainly know what Kanye wants from me. Yeah? He wants me to wear these. I'll spend 400, 500 pounds trying to get a pair. Gave you blessings in this world. What did you do with them? What was your intention behind it? The second thing, we gave you money. What did you do with it? The third is we gave you youth. How did you spend it? Was it spent playing Fortnite, FIFA? Or was it spent trying to get closer to God? When one answers these successfully, the final question is, and your love of Ahlul Bayt. Tell us about that. How will I show that love in my life right now? If the person cannot answer successfully, at that point, they will try and work their ways out of it. But the voice will come, my servant lies. And Munkar and Nakir, enraged, they will pick up their maces of fire and they will begin to strike this person over the head. The weight of which the narrations say were Munkar and Nakir to strike the mountains that surround Mecca, they would become dust. Says 3 times they will hit the person over the head, and with every strike the grave will begin to fill with fire from all sides. This person now burning, no one to hear their cry. As the burning happens, 99 snakes shall enter the grave, wrapping themselves, crushing this individual's bones, attacking him. The scorpions will enter. Ayatollah Dastaghi Shirazi says in Ma'ad, he says that if a single drop of one of the venom of one of the scorpions of the grave was to fall inside one of the seas of the earth, all 7 seas would begin to boil. 1 drop of that venom of the scorpions and the snakes. And then 99 of them surround the individual. Nowhere to go, nowhere to escape. And then the Fishar-e Qadr happens, the pressing of the grave, where the walls of the grave begin to crush the individual till their ribs begin to mix with each other. For the believer, very few people escape the pressing of the grave, the sixth Imam says. For the believer, it's like a hug. It's a welcoming hug. But for the disbeliever, it is to crush him. All of that, and that is just night one of the Barzakh. Night one. After that, the person enters, the soul is removed from the body again and placed into something that is known as Jisme Mithali. It's like this body. It's like when you look in the mirror. It's there. You can see it. It is you. But it's light. Has no weight to it.
Reflection.
It's like a reflection. It is you, but it's not you. It's not your physical self. The whole state of the Barzakh is like a dream state. It's real. It's happening. But it's not physical. There will be those in the Barzakh that will be placed in Wadi Barhut, which some narrations point towards as Yemen as being that alternate dimension where it will be placed in Wadi Salam. Many of you have been there in Najaf, where all the good souls will go. But it's not that run-down, sandy place that you see, but rather another dimension. And within it, those that were bad souls will be punished within Wadi Barhut. And we don't have time to go into the punishments and things like that. And in Wadi Salam, there will be the believers that will be given mansions, that will be given places where they will live, foods that they will eat, gardens within which they will dwell. And they will eagerly await those that have already gone into the Barzakh. They await those that are dying in the dunya, and as they come in, they rush to meet that individual. They ask about their family members, those that have gone, that they have left behind, And they will be told, yes, your son got married, this happened, this happened. Because although we hear every Thursday night, all the arwah, the souls come back, that's why you must do dua, but it's not strictly true. It is based upon the level of the individual. Certain individuals will be allowed permission to leave the Barzakh, to come back into this realm in their soul, in their spiritual form, to visit their family members, to see how their family members are living. Some may be able to do it every week, depending on their station, on how many good deeds they did within the dunya. Some may only be given the opportunity once a month, others once every 3 months, once a year, others once every 10 years. Some may never even get the opportunity. But as people come into the Barzakh, they will go, they'll meet them, they'll have houses. There'll be places within which they dwell. And there are certain places of Barzakh that are reserved for certain individuals. There's one Aalam that had a habit from a young age, that he would walk between Najaf and Karbala every Thursday. He would leave first thing in the morning and reach Karbala the next day, or the night of that day. One day someone said, as years go by, he gets old, they say to him, look, why is it that you keep on walking? You're old now. I get someone to take you, take a horse, do something. Why do you insist on walking? He says, how can you tell me not to walk after that which I have seen? They said, what is it that you saw? He says, one day when I was in my youth, says, I decided that I'm going to walk to Karbala as I did every week. He says, I filled my water bag. He says, it was a very, very hot day. He says, I began walking, and at that time there wasn't any of these, all the buildings in between and stuff, desert. He says, I was walking, as I was walking, I knew that the day was so hot that this water wouldn't last me. So I decided that I would walk to the point where I cannot walk any further, that the thirst has overcome me. And then I would take a sip of the water and then carry on till I got to that point again. then take another sip of the water until I reached Karbala. Says, so I pushed myself and I walked and I walked and I was in the high desert at high noon when I couldn't take it anymore. Says, I took off that water bag, I went to open it to drink it and realized that all of the water had evaporated. That's how hot it had been that day. Says, now I could neither go back nor go forward. I had nowhere to go. The water was empty. Says, I took a step forward and I fainted. Says, I don't know how long I laid there, but a short while later I began to feel a cool breeze on my face. Says, I opened my eyes and found myself sitting in a garden. I sat up and I saw just a few yards away a long table that was set up with thrones around it, and there were people that were sitting upon that table eating. Says, when they realized that I was awake, they looked towards me, they called me by my name and they said, come over. So I came over towards them. They said, sit down. I sat on one of the chairs and they said, eat, you're thirsty, drink. It says that I'd forgotten my thirst. So I looked at them, I said, I was in the middle of the desert, where am I now? He said, look, don't worry about where you are now, you were thirsty. And you passed out, we brought you here, just drink, eat. He says, I began drinking and the water was sweeter than I'd ever tasted in my life. The food was more delicious, but he said the thought kept on bugging me. So he says, I again pursued it. They said, look, forget about where you are, just eat. Says, again, the thought wouldn't go away. I said to him, look, please, I beg you, tell me where I am. He said, if we tell you, you'll have to leave. Says, it doesn't matter, just tell me where I am. He says, this is the Barzakh of those that were the Za'ireen of Sayyid al-Shuhada, those that went on the ziyarat of Imam al-Hussain while they were in the dunya. He says, they told me this and I woke up. There are those that have seen the Barzakh. There are those places that are reserved within the Barzakh for certain individuals. There are those that have been able to step the books that if you look at Manazil al-Akhirah or you look at Ma'ad, the resurrection, these books, they have references to people who have entered into the Barzakh. We'll give you one more story and we're going to end on that. In a couple more minutes of your time and then we'll go into the Q&A if you have anything. There's a group of people, they said that we would go to the local graveyard once, and we went on the day of Nowruz to the local graveyard. A friend of ours in Iran, they go to the graveyard, they go on Eid, happy occasions, they have like a little picnic. I don't know, I don't want to judge why they'd be having a picnic in a graveyard, but fair enough, yeah. And so they're in the graveyard, they're having a picnic, and it says we're a group of 4 or 5 friends. It says that one of our friends was a joker, and so as he was eating, he turned to one of the graves and said, oh, people of the grave, we're eating this nice food. When are you going to invite us to be your guests? So as he said this, all of a sudden a voice came, next week. We started looking around. Who said it? You know, realized that the voice had come from the grave. So next week, obviously you're here. So you're saying, when are you going to call us in? And they're like, next week, you're going to be afraid. So these guys, like, don't know what to do, like, so there's a week, and they're going around asking for forgiveness, going and sorting out all debt, you know, going and meeting different people, doing things that they want to do in their life, praying, making up qada, doing all sorts that they can to prepare themselves. Says that week passed very quickly. When that day came, everyone woke up and they were like, I'm still here. So they're going around knocking for each other. So you're still here as well. I don't know what happened here. Yeah? So they go back to the graveyard and say, let's go check it out. You know what happened? Maybe it was our minds. says as we went towards that grave, says that we called out, said, you said you were going to invite us for food. Oh, where is it now? Says in front of us we saw that the grave opened and there were steps. Remember, many of these things are happening simultaneously. The world is carrying on, but those that enter into that dimension. She says we took a step, we went down the steps. As we crossed over, we saw we were in a huge area. Where meadows, lakes, mountains, beautiful. In the distance we saw a pearlescent castle. Says we walked towards it and we went inside and it was beautiful, like we had never seen before in our lives. Says we went inside and there was a long table and on it all sorts of food and 5 chairs set out for us and 1 chair where an individual was sitting. He says, come my friends, I invited you, you asked to be invited here, the food is ready. He said, we sat down and we said to them, you know, who are you? Are you some prophet of God? Are you some... He says, don't worry, just eat. He says, we ate and that food was like we had not tasted in our lives. It was amazing. The water was amazing. The drinks that we were given were amazing. So we turned to this individual, said, are you some prophet of God? Are you some imam? Are you some friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He says, no, I was neither a prophet, nor an imam, nor a friend of God. As I was a simple man, I had a business. And this. He says, why is it that you, like, how is it possible? And he tells them, I had certain things. I never lied when I was in the world. I did good actions. And as a result of that, Allah has given me this. See, to be able to reach the Barzakh and to reach the good Barzakh, the Jannah of Barzakh, it's easy. The formula is easy. All of that scary stuff, that, you have to be really rotten to reach that. It's easier to reach because the mercy of God is vast. So all you have to do in order to reach the castles and the lakes and the gardens and the food is simply stay away from that which is haram and fulfill your wajibat. Those things that are wajib. And do good actions along the way. Your wajibat are not, they are good actions, but they're not the good actions. The good actions are you being nice to people, holding doors open for people, respecting other human beings, respecting nature, respecting the environment. Not littering. All of these different things. Being aware of your responsibilities. Do these 3 things, and that is there. You have to be a really, really rotten person to end up into all of those punishments. And there are many. Those that are pinned down, and I purposefully didn't go into them today. Those that are pinned down and boiling molten iron is poured into their ears. These were the ones that listened to music in the world. Another with his head being smashed by a boulder over and over, and his head regenerates, and again his head is smashed, his brain splatter. Who is this person? This is the one that didn't read his salah in the world. The one that didn't pray namaz. All of these to one side. But if you follow that simple formula of staying away from haram, fulfilling your wajibat, and just being an all-round nice person, there is no way that that will come near you. All that awaits you are gardens, palaces, and ease. So with that, we'll end inshallah. If you have any questions, I'll try and answer them.